TTP God.
Sutton was born on March 12, 1936, in Buckland, Kansas. But his legend began in Stillwater, Oklahoma. Sutton played for Coach Henry Iba at Oklahoma A&M from 1956 to 1958, before becoming an assistant under Iba. It's clear Sutton learned a lot from his mentor and was destined for greatness, winning a combined 342 games at Creighton and Arkansas. But it was his stint at Kentucky where he ran into trouble. The Wildcats were put on NCAA probation because of a recruiting scandal, and Sutton was forced to resign.
Welcome to the Eddie Sutton Show. I'm Tom Dorado alongside the head man at Oklahoma State, Eddie Sutton.
That's when his career came full circle, back to his alma mater in Stillwater.
I've always had a dream that one day I might come back to my alma mater.
Introduced as a head coach by his mentor, a beaming Henry Iba.
This is a great day for me and for Oklahoma State, and I'm so happy they're home and back home where they belong.
Eddie Sutton once again worked his magic that first season.
Great pass by Sean off to John Pittman. And
after winning just 15 games the prior year, the Cowboys won the Big 8 regular season championship and made the NCAA tournament for the first time in 7 years, advancing to the Sweet 16.
Now we find ourselves with only 16 teams left, 2 games away from being in the Final Four.
He completely revitalized his alma mater's love for basketball, turning Gallagher Iba Arena into the rowdiest arena in the country.
I can't hear myself. This is Cameron Indoor Stadium West. It's unbelievable.
Sutton made 5 straight NCAA tournament appearances on his way to the Final Four in 1995.
Probably had some crowds at large, but not at 2:30 in the morning. That was just, I was flabbergasted.
Throughout the Sutton era, the Cowboys were perennial conference contenders. But perhaps Eddie's finest moment had nothing to do with basketball. Sutton was a rock for the OSU family in the aftermath of the 2001 OSU plane crash.
Saturday night's tragedy took the lives of 10 people who were precious, not only to their families, but to each one of us.
And they bounced back from that horrific tragedy, reaching the Final Four in 2004, cutting down the net one final time. Ultimately, his career at OSU ended after a DUI.
Hello. It's our Tuesday edition of On the Hill with Pat Jenkins Sports Talk Radio here on KDSJ 479, and we are glad to be back. Hope everybody had a very relaxing but yet still good Memorial Day weekend. As I had a good one. Demetrius, how was your weekend?
You know, just another day in the studio, you know me.
Yeah, I saw you guys on Facebook Live doing a lot of making of beats. And we like to make all our beats on this show will be brought to you by Sauced Up Radio, Sauced Up Entertainment. They do a great job. So when you hear them, they're all made in studio. Nothing's bought. It's all made in studio. So that's where all of our beats and music arrangements come from. But we came in with audio. Former Arkansas Razorback head coach, former Kentucky, former Oklahoma State head men's basketball coach Eddie Sutton passed away over the weekend. And I'm talking about, I had the privilege of growing up around Sean, Scott. Those guys were close to my age. Steve was a little older. But the one thing I always knew about the Sutton family is they had great passion for people. And my thoughts and prayers are with Sean, Scott, Steven, and the entire Sutton family. As the GOAT, the guy that brought Arkansas basketball up to the national scene, Eddie Sutton. And then, we all know that Nolan Richardson, after Eddie left here to go to Kentucky, Nolan Richardson came in and really elevated it even higher. But the start of this program has to go to what Eddie Sutton was able to accomplish in the years to Fayetteville. Like I said, just to get the basketball program, Demetrius, to where people in the country knew who the Razorbacks were.
Absolutely. You know, a lot of people say he was the beginning and that spark to that Nolan Richardson era that left him some of the key beginning pieces that allowed Nolan Richardson to really flourish here. Not to take anything away from Nolan, because he did set his own mark, but you know, a lot of people credit Sutton for giving him something to work with coming into.
And you know, I can't remember which former player said it best, but you know, to know that he was a Hall of Famer before he passed away was, I think, an honor, something that was really, he was worthy of it. I mean, like I said, this guy really changed basketball, and then from when he left Arkansas on to Kentucky, you know, that program, and then from Kentucky to go to Oklahoma State and get them in the Final Four, was just, you know, Eddie Sutton was a great coach, and he was an even better man if you had a chance to be, you know, in his presence away from the basketball court there at Barnhill Arena. He was a really special man and will be greatly missed. I know that, you know, like I said, my prayers go out to the Sutton family. But you know, when you look at this coming up, we're going to go around the SEC as we got a big show planned for you. A couple of new coaches, 3 to be exact, not counting Sam Pittman, are making their way through this COVID pandemic and getting their programs underway. With that being said, we're going to be joined by Jared Redden of the Daily Mississippian to talk about just how Lane Kiffin and his program and staff are really adjusting and what's to look ahead for. And then we're going to trek on down just slightly, a little bit north or south. Which one is that, D? South or north? We'll go slightly down the road to Starkville, Mississippi, where we're going to catch up with Jake Wimberly of the Drive at 5. We're going to talk about Mike Leach and how he and Hale State are starting to really make an adjustment with him coming aboard as the new head Bulldog. And then we're going to make our way all the way up to Columbia, Missouri. Come on. Well, we're going to talk to Eric Bloom of the Daily Columbian. We'll find out what Eli Drankowitz and his staff are starting to do. 3 new coaches, Demetrius. What will you be trying to what's the one message you're going to be looking for in today's SEC roundtable?
You know, just the feeling of the fans. You know, how the fans are receiving these coaches, and just what's the update on a lot of these coaches recruiting. You know, there's not been a lot of there hasn't been a lot of football action as far as team meeting and things like that. So I just really want to see some of the updates on some of these 22 kids, some of these 2021 kids that these coaches have had the privilege of recruiting during this coronavirus.
And the one thing I want to understand, I'm going to ask all these guys, is with the NFL coming out and with their policy about fan participation, they're expecting just business as usual. How will the SEC perform on, or you know, what will be their criteria for fans? Will they take the blueprint of what the NFL is doing? Who knows? But we're going to find out, and we're going to get a real quick break because it's time to get the SEC roundtable going here on the Hill with Pat Jenkins Sports Talk Radio. It's our Tuesday edition. Back in a moment.
Extremely honored because I still love the University of Arkansas, and I love all the people that I've met through the years and all those great players that I had. But that really means something to me. You know, they have my name on at Oklahoma State where I graduated, but they've got a number on the floor. But this is much more impressive to have your name up there, top of the floor, and you see all the people, and it's just a reminder that we did have a lot of good things happened when I was coaching here.
And now it's time to make it official. Please direct your attention to the rafters on the east end of Bud Walton Arena as we prepare to unveil a banner in tribute of Coach Eddie Sutton.
Welcome back to our Tuesday edition of On the Hill with Pat Jenkins Sports Talk Radio. And, we normally start out the weeks with the Hawkeye segment, but we're going to put that on hold today as we hadn't did a lot of SEC Caravan talk, so we thought we'd have a SEC roundtable discussion, and we want to talk about the new coaches. There were 4 brought into the SEC this upcoming season, and we're going to catch up with 3 of them by starting off first in Oxford, Mississippi, where we're going to talk Lane Kiffin with the Daily Mississippian's Jared Reddick. JR, welcome to OTH, my man.
Thanks for having me, man. How you doing?
Doing really, really well. I want to get an update. We hadn't talked maybe one time since Lane Kiffin was the announced head football coach there in Oxford for the Rebels. Talk about, how that process has gone since our last conversation, Jared.
Well, when he was first brought on, you and I were talking, I was trying to say championship games, other rumors about Lane Kiffin being brought in. Not really knowing at the time if they were going to kind of go through with it, but they ended up going through with it. But, there was a sense of, okay, yes, he's excited the fan base, and he's got a good history recruit, he's going to recruit, but at the same time, it was in kind of a sticky situation where when Matt Luke got fired, the same people who had the same recruits who had a good relationship with Coach Luke decommitted and wanted to go somewhere else. So Lane Kiffin was kind of in a hole from the very beginning, trying to get all those guys back. Some succeeded, some didn't. Some he brought in new recruits that Ole Miss hadn't even really touched, until Lane Kiffin was brought in. So he was kind of in the hole from the very beginning. And I think Ole Miss finished 42nd overall in the recruiting class rankings. But that was a difficult situation to any coach, even a seasoned veteran like a former Boston State would find a challenging situation. But there was that also scenario, but the optimism still remained high. But the big problem is now with COVID-19 kind of just wrecking everything, it's going to be it just seems like a really severe disadvantage. For a new coaching staff like Ole Miss has, like Kiffin, and there's only one familiar coach on the staff, Derek Nix, who's actually been in Oxford longer than a few years on the coaching staff too. So they're going to have to really find a way to be creative, find a way to get all these players to buy in and kind of learn the system in a hurry before football gets played in the fall. But the optimism still remains high. That's fun, though.
What has been the plan for when the students and prospective players come back on June 8th? I know it's voluntary, but what have you heard anything from the AD at Ole Miss as to how they're going to gradually get things back to normal life?
There have been talks about it. Keith made it clear that we will correspond with what the SEC says. Now, the SEC ruled that that in early June that they could all come back and have a type of thing for it, and most of it is they're kind of playing it by ear, and I think most teams in the SEC are kind of following suit in that area. I haven't seen the full ins and out details as of yet. Of course, being a little bit over a week and a half or so until that comes in. But with football and of course the entire campus as a whole kind of being dormant.
Right.
All the summer camps on campus being canceled. And other things, and employees still kind of working from home until August because August is what then really the entire nation is kind of gearing towards, just letting this thing wind down and just trying to figure out how to come back in a safe manner.
Now, we've had a chance, Jared, as the SEC welcomed 4 new head coaches. There at Lane Kiffin at Ole Miss, Eli Drinkwitz at Missouri, Mike Leach at Mississippi State, and Sam Pittman here at the University of Arkansas. From afar, when you look at the other 3, Missouri, Arkansas, and Mississippi State, which program do you see making a bigger impact with their first-year head coach, in your opinion?
remind me, Missouri, Mississippi State, Ole Miss, and what was the fourth one?
Arkansas,
Yeah.
Sam Pittman.
Okay, yeah. I would say, in my personal opinion, I think it would have to be a tie in between Arkansas and Ole Miss. Arkansas, in the fact that Sam Pittman, while kind of unproven as a head coach, he brought in one heck of a coaching staff.
Right.
I mean, everyone around the nation was like, okay, they're not picking up commitments left and right like Tennessee is, but their coaching staff overall has a high caliber, just a very high caliber staff.
Right.
With what they've done, and really, and the numbers don't lie. And now, what Pittman does as a head coach is to be determined. They kind of did this kind of same experiment with, the previous regime. But yeah, I think, there's a lot of good things heard about Sam Pittman. Now, Lane Kiffin is in a situation where, he's kind of had a really interesting coaching road.
Right.
But he's been stamped by some of the best coaches in the history of college football. When you go with what Pete Carroll did and what Nick Saban did, and even working with Coach Orgeron at one point, he's been seasoned, and he's had a kind of varying ways of getting it done. But like Kiffin, while he does have, and he introduced kind of a really outside of the box approach
right.
to staff, like having a general manager, kind of an NFL type system with head staff and the support staff. But it's a good situation with just the talent that he's inheriting. The freshman class, the John Rice Plumlee, the Jerry Ely, the Jonathan Mingos, and just all these freshmen are just players that were young and kind of far unproven, but actually showed flashes of brilliance. So I'd say Ole Miss and Arkansas. Arkansas just for the coaching staff that they brought in, and Ole Miss with just what's there on the table and with the coaches that can do it.
Talking with Jared Redding of the Daily Mississippian, covers Ole Miss football for us here on the Hill Pat Jenkins Sports Talk Radio. Now, Jared, there's a big new addition, and we mentioned Coach Mike Leach there at Mississippi State, which is going to lead me to my next question. How interesting is this Egg Bowl in the state of Mississippi about to be? I mean, have you noticed the anticipation with both of these coaches in that state now for that ball game that's going to take place in Oxford this coming year?
Oh boy, where do I begin? I remember, it wouldn't about a little bit less than a month after Lane Kiffin was hired, and everybody was like, the spot's going to be Mississippi because of Lane Kiffin. Mississippi State had, rumored candidates, and there was a rumor at one point that Steve Sarkisian was going to take that job,
right?
And it ended up being Mike Leach. Now that was the biggest surprise to me, because once again, what Lane Kiffin seemed like kind of in the beginning from us Ole Miss fans was kind of one of those off-season pipe dreams, and you could kind of say the same for Mississippi State with Mike Leach after Lane Kiffin got hired at Ole Miss. But when he did get hired, I mean, him talking about Mississippi State and picking off her and bringing back the old speeches, the ones that you see on social media and you laugh and all that, and you realize, shoot, he's your head coach now.
Right.
It's gonna be very interesting. I mean, they've already kind of gone back and forth on Twitter, joking. They're betting a vacation home on this year's Egg Bowl. They've had a good history together, in the Pac-12.
Right.
They're kind of against the norm of head coaches anywhere else in the country, and the fact that they do the right things, but they have different ways of doing it. And they have a life outside football.
Well, my man, we love having you on, Jared. We're gonna, it just means more, and with the new announcement of them getting back June 8th, SEC football is right around the corner. So prepare for it, man. You'll be hearing from me quite a bit.
All right.
Hey, thanks for taking time, Jared.
Yeah, anytime. Bye-bye.
That was Jared Redding of the Daily Mississippian giving us the Ole Miss update. Demetrius, sounds like they got some excitement going on, and you would expect that when you have a guy of the magnitude, personable-wise, as a Lane Kiffin.
Definitely, he does have a sense of charisma, and he has a name. I think when you talk about Lane Kiffin, a lot of kids can resonate and know who that guy is.
Right.
You talk about this younger generation, so I think it can be something special. I think that relationship might end up being semi-mid a long stint. Usually Lane Kiffin doesn't stay places longer than 1 or 2 years. So I think that could be a good marriage between those two.
Well, we're going to continue on with our SEC roundtable as we're going to make our way down to Starkville, and we're going to talk about another coach that made his way into the SEC, Mike Leach, and we're going to do that with Jake Wimberly of the Drive at 5. He's up next. It's On the Hill with Pat Jenkins on KDSJ 479. Back in a moment.
Thank you all very much. It's always great to get back here in beautiful Arkansas and here at the university. I had so many wonderful experiences with this wonderful group of guys behind me. The only thing I found out today when we were all back there gathering, he told stories I'd never heard before. But I really appreciate the wonderful people that are all here, and believe me, there's no one that loves Arkansas more than I do. Fayetteville and the University of Arkansas are special places. I'm always indebted for all the great friendships that I have been able to meet through the years, but I'm just so pleased to be a Razorback.
I like chicken and waffles. What's a good place I can get some chicken and waffles? I know. KDK's Chicken at 989 South Razorback Road. Get on down there and see Keith and Kathy. Get a plate of that loving. Like they say on their building, it's not your mama's. The best chicken and waffles in the South. They even got chicken wings, and they got these things called loaded fries. I think you might want to get on down there. Meet me down there or see me down there. KDK's Chicken at 989 Razorback Road.
Jenkins Sports Talk Radio. It's our first initial show of the week as we were out yesterday due to the Memorial holiday weekend that we just had. But we're going to continue on with our SEC roundtable discussion. We're talking about the new coaches that's made their way into the SEC because, as we in the media know, it just means more. So let's make our way and talk to a good buddy that knows quite a bit about this next program we're going to be talking about, the Mississippi State Bulldogs, and Mike Leach with Jake Wimberly of the Drive at 5. J-Dub, welcome back to OTH.
Hey, guys. Pat, welcome. I appreciate you having me back on your show, man. As always, it's a warm welcome. And, look, hope you guys had a great holiday weekend. And looks like we're a step closer to not only being back, but playing a little football if you read the tea leaves here.
Absolutely. Players will be admitted back voluntarily June the 8th. Talk about, the pulse there in Starkville with the new coach and new staff under Mike Leach. How are things going from what you've heard to this point?
Well, it's kind of been a back and forth deal. There's a lot that's really been going on as far as off the field stuff. I don't know if you remember, but it made some national headlines. Mike Leach made a tweet that was back in March, early April, that was not taken well by all rights. It should have been taken well, and he probably should have put something out like that on Twitter. And of course, he's been real quiet on Twitter. And there was some players that were not happy with that. So Mississippi State's lost a couple guys in the transfer portal. Lost another guy this past week in Jerry and Jones, a 4-star corner, and that wasn't anything to do with the tweet. He just said, hey, I just want to move on down the road. Actually, Patty's going to play his football at Ole Miss, as will Fabian Levitt, the defensive tackle. That's what it sounds like. So, Mike Leach has lost a couple to Lane Kiffin via the transfer portal. But, Pat, I think the main thing is right now these guys need to get back on campus. Right. I mean, all of these first-year coaches, from what you guys up at Arkansas to over at Ole Miss, Mississippi State, these coaches even strength coaches haven't even had a chance to really get their hands on these guys.
Right.
And while most of them should come back in pretty good shape, I think for everybody, Mike Leach included, it will be great to get these guys back on campus and to get them back, at a training table, to get them back in a weight room. And I don't think that can come soon enough for any of these coaches.
When you look at these 4 new coaches, Jake, which out of the 4 are in more of a better situation as far as the experience factor goes? I know Arkansas is a young team with 14 returning starters. They're a young, old team, so to speak. But you look over at Ole Miss, I mean, they've got quite a few back. So in your opinion, out of the 4 teams with the new coaches, who's more ready to have more of a successful year in year 1?
Wow, that's a great question. And I'll tell you what, that's something I haven't really thought about. But if you just kind of go down the list, let's start with Drinkwitz at Missouri. I mean, look, Missouri's talent is the only team in the SEC that they have a 3-year better recruiting composite is Vanderbilt. So, Missouri has been somewhat of an interesting success story in the Southeastern Conference just because they played in 2 SEC title games since they came into the league in 2011, 2012. Right. But they've got to have a dynamic quarterback to make that thing hum. I'm not sure that they have that. So, Missouri kind of take them off the table. I would expect that they're going to maybe even continue to trend down even with a new head coach. Arkansas, of course, with some young talent coming back, Felipe Franks, it'll be interesting to see how he can, maybe take this final year and finish out on a high note.
Good point.
Mississippi State's got some talent coming back, Pat, but here's the thing. They are not built to do what Mike Leach wants to do right now. And so how will that look? Will he be forced to use tight ends? Will he be forced to use running backs and really kind of have a shell of a system that he wants it to look like, say, 2 years down the road? Ole Miss, I would have to say, probably is the most ready. I mean, you've got a quarterback in John Rice Plumlee. We saw with Lane Kiffin. He was able to take like a Blake Sims at Alabama and be extremely successful. He has been able to mold and take different offenses and put them in where he wants them to be. And then, of course, they've got a pretty good backfield with Jerrion Ealy. They got a nice receiver, Elijah Moore, and they got some defensive talent coming back. So, if you're asking me who's ready to maybe have a little more success than they've had in the past, probably Ole Miss.
When you look at this COVID pandemic, and you mentioned it earlier in the segment, Jake, with the coaches not being able to get out on the field, go through spring ball. When you talk about there at Mississippi State, what's the situation that they've come up with to ensure that when these young men come back? I know that there's been a possibility of maybe having temperature state checks when the kids come in, but what's going to be kind of the protocol that they'll follow there at Mississippi State from what you've heard?
From everything I've heard, it's pretty much what everybody else in the Southeastern Conference is going to do. That looks like is at least everybody's going to be tested once they get back on campus. Then at that point, temperature checks, and then of course if you feel bad, it's going to be kind of each person is going to be responsible for themselves. Hey, coming to the coach and say, look, coach, I don't feel good. Okay, we're going to go take you and get you tested again. And it's really going to kind of be trial by fire. Now I know that doesn't excite a lot of the national media. I saw Dan Woken put an article out last Friday about this, and he was advocating for weekly testing. But Pat, this that gets into the thousands and thousands of dollars weekly on tests. And look, these athletic departments are already hurting. So I think these coaches are all they've done their homework. Their athletic departments have done their homework. And the good thing about the college age, and I'm gonna call them kids. They're not kids. They're just they're young. They're a kid to me now because I'm in my mid-40s. But these guys are less susceptible than anybody or most anybody to this. So these guys are going to be okay. And I think you're going to see the athletics department. For a lot of these kids, this, they're in much better hands at the university than they are where they come from.
Talking with Jake Wimberly of the Drive at 5, covers all Mississippi State football for us here there at Hail State. Now I want to talk to you about fans in attendance. NFL's Troy Vincent came out just yesterday and said they expect full attendance to all their games. Now, do you think, with that being said, with the NFL taking the first initial stance toward the fans, that the SEC will be kind of the flagship conference that will make an initiative to probably have as many fans in the stadiums as possible, in your opinion?
I think so. I mean, the Southeastern Conference has led the way here. We were talking about it Friday on my program, just kind of going through all of the conferences, and the SEC was by far the only conference that said, hey, we're coming back on, June 8th, basically. Clemson said they were coming back early. Ohio State, the big players did. Everybody else said, hey, we're going to wait and see. So the SEC has led the way. They've led the way with talent on the field. I mean, it's the best football conference in the country.
Absolutely.
And I think now that and look, that goes without saying. That's television contracts, that's product on the field, that's players on the field, that's everything, passion, the whole deal. It's the SEC, and I think now that the National Football League has made that move, I think you're going to see the SEC make the move. Now you're going to have some, and rightfully so. I get it. It's going to come down to where you are geographically.
Right.
If you're upstate New York, you may not want to go to a football game for the problems that they've had there. But if you're out in Starkville, Mississippi, or if you're in Fayetteville, Arkansas, or maybe even over on the plains down at Auburn, it may be okay. And I think what you're going to see is some form of a temperature check. You're going to have some sort of a quick eval that they can look at people as they come through the gate. And then, hey, if you're good, you come in. And if not, hey, wear a mask. If you're not, you're not going to be allowed in. It'd be equate to coming through, a metal detector with a pocket knife.
Right.
You're going to be, kind of said, hey, you got to get out of here. But Pat, I mean, these athletic departments, not to put money over life, but if these athletic departments do not make this money, there will be no athletics in college sports.
Lastly, now I want to have let's talk about this new rivalry there at the Egg Bowl. It will be quite the game in Oxford this upcoming season with Leach and Kiffin on the sidelines. Talk about how is the talk around Mississippi State football when that game comes up about because they don't mention Ole Miss, they say the other school.
Yeah, it's interesting. When these two coaches got hired, talking about Mike Leach and Lane Kiffin, they were back and forth on social media, and gee golly shucks, But Pat, it's been interesting the last 10 days since these players have left Starkville and headed to Oxford. This thing's kind of ratcheted up here in the state again. So I expect it to be just what it's always been, is just a fierce, competitive football game. It'll be fun to see how, by the time we get to that, what Mike Leach's offense looks like with a KJ Costello transferring in from Stanford.
Good point.
Who's going to be the pass catchers? How will he use Kylan Hill in the backfield? What will his defenses look like? Because typically Mike Leach's teams don't play just great defense. They play okay defense. Same goes for Lane Kiffin.
Right.
What does his team look like? Will it be a game where maybe both teams are vying for bowl eligibility? It very well could be, where both teams are sitting at 5 wins or maybe even 6 wins, or needing a game to, kind of jockey up. So neither team is going to be in any kind of a running, for the SEC West this year. But I think come that ball game, the intrigue with both coaches, not just regionally but nationally with Leach and Kiffin, I think it sets up well, and I think it's great exposure for the state of Mississippi.
Hey, my man, it's about to get going. After June 8th, it means more in the SEC. So, Jake, get ready, as we're going to be calling on you quite often here in the coming weeks and months. And
hey, give me a shout, and I'm going to do the same for you. Take care. Talk to you soon.
All right, bud.
All right, see ya.
That was Jake Wimberly of the Drive at 5, covers the Mississippi State Bulldogs for us here on the Hill Sports Talk. Guy does a great job. And Demetrius, when you hear the scuttlebutt, we've heard from Jared Redden of the Daily Mississippi, we've heard from Jake of the Drive at 5 Ole Miss and Mississippi State guys, and from all intents and purposes, the SEC is looking to get back into this thing as normal and go about their business.
Money, money, money. That's all I can say. I mean, when you talk about you losing, I think you said some 50 billion, not trillion.
Hey,
we're talking billions of dollars.
You put that B word instead of that M, it's a different game. I mean, I don't think people realize how much college football financially helps collegiate institutions. It's not just the sports side. You're talking about being able to fund a new law school or a new engineering building. I mean, all that plays a factor. And college football is, they always say, a big breadwinner. But we're going to take a quick break. We're going to continue on with our Eddie Sutton tribute, and then we'll be back with Eric Bloom of the Daily Columbian to talk a little Mizzou football on our SEC Roundtable. It's On the Hill with Pat Jenkins on KDSJ 479. Back in a bit.
Probably had some crowds at large, but not at people in one. That was just, I was flabbergasted.
Throughout the Sutton era, the Cowboys were perennial conference contenders. But perhaps Eddie's finest moment had nothing to do with basketball. Sutton was a rock for the OSU family in the aftermath of the 2001 OSU plane crash.
Saturday night's tragedy took the lives of 10 people who were precious, not only to their families, but to each one of us.
And they bounced back from that horrific tragedy, reaching the Final Four in 2004, cutting down the net one final time. Ultimately, his career at OSU ended after a DUI incident in 2005, just 1 month after OSU dedicated the floor at Gallagher-Iba Arena. Eddie Sutton.
Welcome back to our Tuesday edition of On the Hill with Pat Jenkins Sports Talk Radio. It's our SEC Roundtable edition as we're touching base with the programs that brought in the new coaches around the SEC because it just means more. And we've made our way to Oxford. We made our way to Starkville. We can't finish up until we get to Como, where we're going to catch up with the Daily Columbians, Eric Bloom, to talk a little Mizzou football. EB, welcome to OTH.
Hey, thank you, Pat. Appreciate having me on as always.
I know you have a new coach there in Como, and Eli Drinkwitz comes in and takes over for former coach, now defensive coordinator here at Arkansas, Barry Odom. Talk about how that transition has gone early in this process, Eric.
Well, yeah, I mean, it was always kind of, towards the end of the season, it was always the kind of the hot-button question, is Barry Odom going to stay on in Missouri? And it was probably about 50-50 among the fan base of people who thought he should be back and not, but he ended up being fired. And really, and when you look down to it, if one thing of the probably 16 or 17 that kind of went wrong at the end of the season doesn't go wrong, Barry Odom is probably still in a job. I mean, One less score for Vanderbilt and they win that game, you're not firing a coach at 7-5.
Right.
So, one little thing went wrong. So I really do think that Arkansas's defense is in great hands of Barry Odom. I mean, clearly, when you look at Missouri's problems last year, what a defensive coordinator would do weren't concerned with those problems. And Ryan Walters, Missouri's defensive coordinator, is phenomenal. So when you look at kind of the transition going to Eli Drinkwitz, he's kind of an outsider when it comes to Como. I mean, very much you brought in Gary Pinkel, and he very much changed and raised the level of this program in his 15 years as head coach. And Odom was his longtime assistant. Right. So there hasn't been this kind of clean slate, new view that Eli Drinkwitz brings in that, it hasn't happened in a while, where it's kind of just been one kind of more continuation of a lot of the same traditions and things. So I think, course correcting here is not a bad thing for Missouri. Early on, it seems like Drinkwitz has put a heavy focus on recruiting in the St. Louis area that's kind of paid off. He's not afraid to kind of, not mince words and, media things, and that's fine. And, and that's fine and all, but, and it seems like he's brought a lot of life and excitement back to the program. But none of it really matters if you're not winning in the fall. And that's yet to be proven, obviously, because he hasn't played a game yet. Right. But it seems like he's bringing a lot of things in, and, basically he's done as much as he probably can do 5 or 6 months in.
Talking with Eric Bloom of the Daily Columbian there in Columbia, Missouri. Covers all Missouri football for us here on the Hill. What do you think the biggest hurdle will be for Coach Drinkwitz in year one there at Missouri in this 2020 season?
I think just top-end talent, there's not a whole heck of a lot of it left on the team. I think when you look at Missouri's best players playing, Nick Bolton coming back at linebacker, they have a lot of help in the secondary, and they have some experience coming back on the defensive line. So it's really going to be on offense, even though they have Larry Roundtree coming back at running back, a former All-SEC running back. The wide receiver corps really didn't show up last year for a lot of the time, and they're kind of depleted. They're kind of coming around. And then on the offensive line, you've lost 3 players who are now going to be in NFL minicamp. So you're really have to retool and rebuild that entire offensive line with a quarterback who's never started full-time yet. So if you look at where Eli Drinkwitz's strengths are, that he's an offensive-minded coach, and that's where his focus has been, it's absolutely going to be retooling and refocusing the offense. And, can this team put up points at the end of the year? That's what really failed this team. Yes, they put up, I think, 42 against Ole Miss, and then they just disappeared pretty much the rest of the year. I think their next highest point total was against an Arkansas team, which was completely depleted at that point at the end of the season, with scoring 24. They only got 20 against Tennessee. They only got, I think, 17 against Vanderbilt. They just didn't show up, pretty much. So it's going to be basically giving a jolt to that offense.
I'm talking with Eric Bloom of the Daily Columbian here on our SEC Roundtable discussion. Covers all Missouri football. Eric, I want to ask you a big question. Out of the 4 coaches that have taken new head coaching jobs, that being Kiffin at Ole Miss, Leach at Mississippi State, you have Drinkwitz there at Missouri, and Pittman here in Fayetteville. Out of those 4 coaches, when you look at the rosters, which one of those coaches do you feel will have the most successful year in year 1 at their institutions?
I probably would say Drinkwitz. And that's not me choosing Missouri. It's because I think Ole Miss had some fundamental problems last year, and Lane Kiffin kind of coming in. He's a great fit long-term. I'm just not sure how much of a jolt he kind of brings to programs. Right. With all this course correcting he's done in his career, I'm not sure. They're the biggest unknown of the 4, I'd say that. I think that Arkansas just has leaps and bounds to go. Sam Pittman is rather unproven as a head coach, and it can be made that you can make the argument that Barry Odom is probably better suited to be a head coach of that team right now than Sam Pittman is.
Good point.
But I just there's just too much of an uncertainty with Arkansas with how they performed the previous couple of years. So it really comes down to Leach and Drinkwitz. And Leach, they're getting KJ Costello from Stanford, starting quarterback, and they're in a good spot. But at the end of the day, Mississippi State was a borderline bowl team last year, where Missouri was probably 2 or 3 points in a few different games and winning 8 or 9 games. And even though they lost a lot of that talent, it seems like Drinkwitz can replenish it in the right way. So I do think the answer to this question, regardless of because of the team I know the most about, and I'm living in Columbia, the answer to that question probably still is Elijah Drinkwitz.
I like that. Now, last question before we let you go. What's been the protocol? I know Troy Vincent there with the NFL came out with his assessment of they expect fans to be in full attendance. With that being said, and the NFL takes that stance, my question to you, and I've asked Jake Wimberly of the Drive at 5 Mississippi State, and also to Jared Redden of the Daily Mississippian, what do you think the plan will be for the fans in attendance in the SEC? Will they adopt what the NFL does? Do you think they're going to be the Power 5 program that sets everything in place NCAA related?
Well, yeah, that's kind of the biggest question. Is I don't think anyone really knows yet, because the NCAA has said they're not going to make an umbrella statement because of how coronavirus is kind of affecting everybody around. So I do think that there will be football in the SEC. That they made that plain and clear, that there will be football and that their teams will be at least playing out their conference schedules. How non-conference works is still kind of up in the air. I think that for this season, you're going to have to throw fair play out the window. Right. There might be a national championship game with a team who's played a full schedule against a team who's not. Right. That might happen. So I don't necessarily know the answer to that question. I mean, if they do allow people in, it'll be interesting to see how they do it stadium per stadium. With a lot of these stadiums, very much in Fayetteville and Columbia, I could say for sure, are open-air stadiums that'll be a little harder to control when people kind of get inside. Mm-hmm. So is it just essential employees like boosters and media and stadium workers, and that's it, security, and that's it? Is it just students, season ticket holders? I don't think that's going to be uniform either. So if there are people, I think at Mizzou, I think that they have a new South End Zone complex where I think it's be easier to kind of trace people. So I think that would be what they do there before they open up either the West, the East, or where the Rock M is at the North End Zone. So that's why I think it would be there, but I'm not exactly sure it'll be uniform no matter what they do.
Well, Eric, I love having the insight. It's about to get started when they come back June 8th, and it means more. So I anticipate having you on quite often here in the coming weeks and months. And as always, my man, thanks for taking time out today on the Hill.
Hey, Pat, anytime, man. Anytime you need me, man.
That was Eric Bloom of the Daily Columbian. Covers all Mizzou football, and I think that's going to wrap up our show today. But we want to continue on with our SEC Roundtable, as I think we're going to maybe bring a few more of our brethren, media friends on throughout the week to get their insight as to how each and every program in the SEC is going to handle their June 8th arrival with this pandemic, how they're playing for their players. Really looking forward to hearing that. But we want to give a thank you as we wrap this up by all of our guests. First and foremost, Jared Redding of the Daily Mississippian for giving us his insight on Ole Miss football under Lane Kiffin, and then he was followed up by Jake Wimberly of the Drive at 5, the Mississippi State take on how Mike Leach in that program under Leach is starting to really look toward the future. And then lastly, Eric Bloom of the Daily Columbian came on and talked a little Mizzou football with us under Eli Drankowitz. With that being said, I want to give a thank you to our sponsors, Lindsay and Associates, with an office location in Fayetteville, an office location also too in Rogers. Locomotion is located below the Northwest Arkansas Mall. Corey Beck's Custom Painting, and lastly, we talk about it all the time, KDK's Chicken, located down at 989 Razorback Road. Go see Keith, Kathy. They're open today. Go get a plate of that love. I'm telling you, I had the loaded fries on Friday. Woo! You got to get down there. Meet me there or beat me there. It's KDK's Chicken at 989 South Razorback Road. They got the best chicken and waffles in the South, and like it says on the building, it's not your mama's. And that's going to finish it up from my producer, Demetrius Johnson, to all of our listeners and viewers. You guys continue to support us. We'll be back tomorrow with much, much, much more information. It's On the Hill with Pat Jenkins on KDSJ 479. You guys have a blessed one, and let's get it. We done. We out of here. We did that.